My pleasure to be here with you.
Amen. I didn't really get much time to visit with you before, but that's okay.
We'll get to know each other. I'm looking forward to that very much.
You're close enough you can come back and see us again, can't you? Just up there in Macomb. You know, that's kind of my old hometown. I lived around Macomb and in Macomb for a total of about 26 years. So some of the people I'll still be familiar with, but I know there's a lot of new people move in the area with the college and different factories and things there. But anyway, it's good to have you here today.
Thank you.
I know, Mari, that you are a speaker with Stonecroft. We're always so happy for the speakers with Stonecroft to come by. They speak at the Quincy Christian Women's Connection. That's almost a tongue-tire, and I almost get my tongue tied around it. The first Wednesday of each month, they have a luncheon here in Quincy, and we've been blessed for a long time that the speakers will take time to come by. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you. I am thrilled to have this opportunity.
I can tell that. I see joy in your face.
I have joy.
Where does that joy come from, Mari?
You know, I have been very blessed by God. I did not always have joy. And there were some really dark times in my life, and I found that through the dark times,
yes,
that God became real.
Yes.
I didn't become a Christian until I was in my 20s.
Wow.
And those were hard years. I was really seeking for something to take care of the pain I felt. Mm-hmm. I had lost my mom when I was in high school.
Yes.
She went through a bout of cancer and lost her at a time when I really, really needed her.
Yes.
And as I went off to college, I was looking for something that could take away the pain I felt. And I went after so many things. I ran down a lot of roads that were dead ends.
Yes.
And I finally came to a place where I just had to have some kind of relief from the pain. And a person came into my life at just the right time.
Amen.
And I had a lot of problems with depression, and I didn't know why. And she looked into my life, and she was a surprise. I had no idea that she was a Christian, and certainly she knew I wasn't a Christian by the way I was living. But I went to tell her I had to quit school, and I went in to talk to her, and I told her everything about my dilemma, and this woman listened. And at just the right time, timing can be everything in God's work.
Yes.
And at the right time, she looked at me and she said, "Mari, you don't know the Lord, do you?" And I didn't expect this from this woman at all.
Yes.
And it took me back quite a bit. And after that, she looked at me and she said, "By the fear and the uncertainty that I see in your life, I know you don't know Jesus." And she was a professor at a state school. She couldn't lead me to the Lord.
Yes.
And so she did tell me about someone she knew who had found hope and had found a new life and a sense of direction, and that was something I didn't have.
Amen.
And so she encouraged me to find some books or to find someone who could tell me. And I went and talked to a pastor, and he was able to show me a God who wanted to lavish love on me.
Amen.
And he died to bring me a life that, first of all, to have a life that was with him and not separate. I was on my own, running around trying to find where I belonged in life. And I couldn't do that on my own. And so as I met with that pastor, he opened up the Bible and he showed me a God that loved me so much more deeply than anyone ever could. And he made a way for me to know him. That it wasn't just going to church, it wasn't trying to be a good person, it was coming into a real relationship. And so at that point, I became a Christian, and he encouraged me to take some time just to tell God that I'd had a change of heart, and to thank him for making a way to know him, that Jesus had taken all. And I had a long list of regrets, a long list, and a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and God took all that.
All of it.
And he said, "You don't need to carry it. I'm going to wipe that slate clean."
Amen.
And over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, my sister ended up giving me a Bible, and I ended up, God took me out of the Midwest into California, and I ended up on my own there. And as I read the Bible and I looked through a devotional, I started to see the heart of God. And my friends around me didn't know the heart of God, and they weren't living out the life. He was showing me that that he had a love that would bring abundant life.
Amen.
And it would bring just a whole different way of looking at life. And I didn't see that in my friends. And so I started praying, God, bring me one person who knows about the joy of the Lord. Amen. And the hope of the Lord.
Amen.
And this love that goes beyond anything that we can know. And I kept praying for that. And it's kind of a funny story. I had ended up having to move out of the town I was in because my job took me to a new place. And I went, my friends took all my things and they brought them to the apartment complex, but they had to go and make another commitment. And so they pulled all of my things out and put them on the lawn in front of the apartment complex. And I went to get my keys and they said, well, we're sorry, your apartment's not ready yet.
Okay.
And there I sat on a hot California afternoon with my bed and my box springs and my bike and my boxes, and I was in a town where I didn't know anyone.
Okay.
Wandered around and they said come back at 5 o'clock. So I came back at 5 o'clock and I brought everything into my apartment and I got all settled in and I thought, this is the first time that I ever get to live by myself. And I was excited. And that day behind me of just knowing that I had to walk around town and not know anybody and then move everything in, that was behind me. And so I just thought, oh, I am getting to live in an apartment by myself. And so that just made the rest of the day go well. And so that night, I climbed into bed and turned off my light. And I was so pleased until I saw a shadow creeping up my wall. And I sensed something coming through the darkness, just creeping through the darkness, and I realized I wasn't all alone in that apartment after all. And so I ended up turning on the light, and there they were. Cockroaches. Everywhere. There were cockroaches all over my apartment. And I thought, oh no, it was my first apartment and it was bad. They were in the bedroom and everywhere. And so I went to my apartment manager and they said, well, we'll go ahead. We don't want you to have to stay in there. And so they called me around noontime and they said, we have good news. We have a brand new apartment for you.
Wow, brand new.
No little roommates or anything, so no cockroaches.
Brand
but
new.
She said, the bad news is it's an apartment complex down the street. I knew nobody. So I ended up on a hot afternoon in California dragging all my things down the street. And to make things worse, there was a pool I had to walk by at the clubhouse where there were a bunch of people my age having a pool party. And so as I whined back and forth, it was just so hot, and I kept thinking nobody should be having fun if I wasn't having fun. And so I got moved into my new apartment, and I went to take my key back, and as I slid it under the door, a couple of guys from this party asked if I wanted to stay. Well, I was trying to put partying behind me. But then I looked and I saw that there wasn't anything going on there except for people talking and enjoying food. And at that point, a couple girls waved me over to sit on the couch with them, and they started talking to me. And pretty soon a guy pulled out a guitar, and they all started singing. And they were singing songs about Jesus.
Oh, amen.
I had been praying for one person that I could talk to about this thing, and God used a whole apartment full of cockroaches.
That's wonderful.
And gave me a party full of people that love the Lord.
That's wonderful.
And from that time, I still battled some depression and some hard times, but God used those hard times to take me into the Bible that I'd received. And one of the things that really just kept coming back again and again, and I think God, you hear things and then God gives you heart understanding. And one of the things from the Psalms that God used during that time was the word loving kindness. I needed that loving kindness so much of a Father who loved me so deeply. And so as I would read the Psalms, that kept jumping out at me, that loving kindness that God has for us. And He gave me not a head understanding, but He gave me a heart understanding. And that carried me through the dark times.
Amen.